of max HP to the team if they don't destroy the time. Both teams starting right away, mass stealthing to that first boss's room, and getting ready to pull right away, wanting to make sure they have that bloodlust with 2 and 3 minute cities lined up right away. Method NA going right in there, making sure they don't get too close to the trash on the side. Now, there is a rogue that patrols near the boss area here. If they pull that by accident, they cannot kill it, otherwise it will bolster the boss.
Yeah, very important, they have to always watch out for that. You're seeing Mark kind of digging himself into the corner here, so he'll be away from the kiting path of that mob. As you know, we are in that fortified setting, so you are seeing Adderus going down very quickly here. Very important to watch out for on this boss. You're going to have a lightning shield that gets traded off on between the two mobs here, so you can focus down Adderus first. The lightning shield flips over, well, is on Asphyx and will deal a ton of damage if you start attacking Asphyx. Then after a while, the lightning shield will flip to Adderus, and then you have to switch targets.
PogChamp just now finishing up some of the trash and now moving on to the boss. Likely don't have access to all of their 3 minute CDs because they did have to clean up that trash. Then again, they could have saved them just waiting for that bloodlust. Nonetheless, a bit behind, at least in terms of the boss progression here versus Method NA. They do have a small advantage with that trash that they just have to clear out. Asphyx now going rapidly down for Method NA, 25%. After this, they are able to skip all of the trash.
Also die gerade antwortet, als hätte ich was gebummelt.
Right side as they go for the walrus, so we'll see if they offer kill anything in here.
Oh, you're seeing the G-Death going up on the
Was
side
ist?
of Muscle Bra there.
Jetzt hätte irgendwie gerade was Kleines gebimmelt oder so. Cool. Wo ist nicht irgendwo? Irgendwo hinten oder so wahrscheinlich. Also kommt's mir zumindest das so.
Soll ich dich aufnehmen, bevor du ins Licht gehst? Ja, schon Glocken oder?
The brother Snake has fallen. Now at 50%. After this, I do assume that they're kind of just going to get into that hallway with that Grog Rider. Not sure if they're going to pull the 3-pack next to it. We'll have to see. There is a lot of skippable trash in this dungeon, especially because some of it is just defaulted with the Orb or Eye, as some people call it, Gauntlet that we'll see later.
Yeah, and they always have the advantage there where they're able to just take their time, skip a lot, and be able to start making them later on. And they're also able to take advantage of that buff near the end of the boss fight for the final boss, where it just give you that increased damage. If they remain in combat, they can still have that buff as they're clearing up the rest of the trash.
Jack, there you go. Elstar putting up some solid DPS numbers on the board for that. Asphyx does now hold just a moment here. There we go for Method PogChamp. We'll see exactly what kind of trash they want to deal with. We did see them pull some trash as the boss was dying, making sure that they kill the boss prior to the trash, so we ignore a lot of that pull. So really clever play from them there. The path, or the bridge here, is now open to them. Want to make sure you avoid these swirlies, the spears. They do a ton of damage and hunt you back as well.
We can certainly ask Tegu about that one. Now, as you see, PogChamp, of course, procs and birds, they always be watching out for, of course, that Crawl's Rider's Noxious Breath here, which looks like we'll get a little bit of damage out of the set. But again, they're just walking ahead and making sure that they can start getting past the bridge, getting away from any of these spears that are dropping down. And it can take so long to be able to actually kill it, get rid of it, and deal with it. You are seeing Muscle Bra actually moving on ahead. So you probably see that they're seeing just shadow melding, maybe just using the Bizpod to be able to just skip past all this extra trash and start moving on to Marex's room.
Yeah, pretty typical to skip this trash and just kind of slither by it. They do get over to the second boss's room here. A lot of dangerous trash moving up here, and you do need to kill everything in this room for the second boss to spawn, namely the tenders. No, Jack, I love some tendies. Now, if you miss the interrupts on their heal, it will AoE heal everything around them, so it's quite crucial. They don't have access to some of the substantial AoE silences like a Boomkin or the Vengeance Demon Hunter here, so they have to be really spot on with that middle 3-pack.
Yeah, at this point, they're just making sure they're getting a good setup, because there are so many mobs patrolling all around, so not only having to make sure they're giving the interrupts on the tenders they're wanting to pull, making sure they're avoiding any of the other infested things you're seeing on the side, because they do have to clear out this entire room before they're able to get Marek to spawn.
So, a bit of a hiccup there for Method NA, just kind of taking their time, making sure they skip everything you skip, just wanting to make sure the patrols there. They actually end up pulling the trash, presumably on purpose, as the team was just kind of waiting there, and then somebody seems to have tagged it. Muscle Bra does go down. We saw that G-Death proc earlier, and we have 3 deaths over on Method NA side on the left right now. Looks like it is a death skip though, if I'm not mistaken. They stealth past something we typically saw in Legion. You kind of have anybody who can stealth successfully move past, anybody who can't will die, and they will res them.
The disaster situation is that JB actually got caught out by that
Method
Rider and
hat,
wasn't actually able to get the mass res off for everybody else. And he's just going to be able to, he's just going to have to die here, run back, stealth all the way back.
NA, was auch mal.
Well, I guess it wasn't watched for the Crawler Rider.
That is a huge time dump right there. So JB, exactly as you said, does release his running back in Kitty
Ja, komisch, ne?
form as quickly as he can. The rest of the team stays dead to make sure that they have that they don't, I mean, they can't get past the trash.
Beste Methode.
So they just have to wait there for that mass res.
Möge die beste Methode.
On the right side is moving well through this room. They did have the hiccup with the muscle broad death to use their battle res, but they are now stable.
They're stable here, they're making sure they're getting the rest of the trash cleared out here, but also JB's having some problems being able to get past a lot of this trash. You do have to watch for, I believe it's the Rogue who's able to see through the stealth, so being able to actually get around it, not pulling into any other mobs. So it looks like it was just kind of the route that he was taking was crossing into that of that Rogue, and it caught him out of
I actually don't even think they see stealth. I think he just ran too close and it just saw him. You have to kind of make him face away. He doesn't have to distract from the Rogue to support him there. So bit of trouble over on the Method NA side. JB does release again. He'll try a second round of stealth to make sure that he gets back to his team for that mass res. PogChamp, once again, just steadily moving through the room here. Nothing too crazy in terms of the pulls. They want to make sure that they keep these explosives under control. A couple of Gahoonies spawn right now, and they make sure to kill them off before they reach the middle of the room.
We're going to kill them off here. You're seeing JB again, trying again, getting back to the rest of his group, being able to have that mass res there. You have to have that awareness. And maybe it is some of the on-stage jitters that kind of getting to them as they're watching out for the other cross rider.
So this time, Dark did actually die as well to come and support JB with some of the stealth, distracts, and saps as well to make sure that they can safely get back. So this time it should be guaranteed on the way back. PogChamp dealing, if I'm not mistaken, with the last of the trash here, waiting for that second boss to spawn in a moment.
Yeah, they always have to be making sure they're getting stacked up together to be able to deal with Wreck there. Be very nice to be able to have a number of different stuns. Even using Fear, for example, be able to deal with that Knot of Snakes stun that goes out onto other players. They do have to deal with this last central pull of all the tenders, and like you said earlier, having the strong interrupts to be able to make sure they're shutting down any of these guys, especially getting these stuns out for the drains whenever they try to bring the egg and gain that damage buff.
Yeah, so these three particularly actually do start with that damage buff, something that the mages can spell steal, but I believe this time it actually translates into a CDR, a cooldown reduction buff rather than damage buff. We see them running over, casting Drain, great AoE stun. They really worked well here to control the health of the tenders and make sure that they're draining at the same time, so they use that AoE stun for all of them. Finally, Method NA get back up on the horse. Everybody is rezzed, and they're starting to work on the second boss room, but I mean, they got their work cut out for them here, Jack.
Indeed they do. As PogChamp here just pulling into Morecta. There's about a three-phase fight that you have to always watch out for. First phase, you do have to watch out for that Noxious Breath, which needs to be facing one player. Dumping any of the goo all over the room.
8 Tode von NA und einer von PogChamp.
So having everybody stacked up together, being able to have a quick stun as you're seeing out of the side of
Wie kann man eigentlich so dermaßen verkacken? Wirklich, wie kann man so dermaßen verkacken, das Ganze? Das ist ja schon nicht mehr, schon immer normal.
Lots of ways to get them out, stuns, you can DPS them out, fears, in-caps work on them as well, so nothing too tough for this team, especially in this fortified environment, not too dangerous of a boss. Method NA still working to chew through that room. At this point, they gotta know that they're behind, so we're probably gonna see some riskier pulls coming out of them to try and catch up, as Method PogChamp just taking a very chill, slow-paced approach to the dungeon right now, and just rocking.
Yeah, and at this point, you're not really able to pull any extra trash into the boss, as we've seen from so many other parts of the MDI, and what it, Sub-Rogue, for example, has been so well known for, Legion and, as we're seeing, recently the DFA. So at this point, they just have to be able to deal with it. A lot of the strikers here are a lot more annoying than the first set that you have to deal with because of the dust clouds that are coming out. So constantly kiting them away from the dust clouds to be able to actually actually able to hit them. Always going to be so important.
That situation where you don't want to leave it in the dust there. We do see the cheat death proc for Dark there. Not going to have that available. Similar situation to Muscle Bro when he got caught out without his cheat death available, and that's where the death occurred earlier. Now, they do still have the battle res available for Method NA because there's just no point battle resing at that point. There was no one available to do it for them as JB had kind of that struggle running back, but they are doing a pretty substantial pull in the middle of the room there, making sure that they're catching up as much as possible. Really have to babysit those.
Fällt gerade auf, dass die ein bisschen zu laut sind, diese Quatschtanten, ey. Merke ich jetzt erst.
Now the real challenge for both of these teams is going to be that lightning ball gauntlet to be making sure they're not getting
PogChamp hat den dritten schon erledigt. Oder nee, den zweiten. Sind wir beim dritten erst.
We'll have the Mage Spell Seal, which I know Dr. Cherry is always be a big fan of, to be able to get a little bit extra damage out. And if they are holding those charges, we'll be able to release them and do a ton of damage. So it's always important to get either a Purge or a Spell Seal to be able to get rid of them very quickly.
If I'm not mistaken, it's a 100% damage buff per stack to those Nimbuses. So making sure to get rid of those or spell seal them either way, or just interrupt them flat out. Don't want too much damage on the group. Now, bit of an advantage here for the team with the Warlock once Method and A gets there. You can actually plant a Warlock portal on the side of this first kind of electric gauntlet, making sure that none of the players suffer, as we've seen off of Max Track, with through the gauntlet. Anytime you get
who's talking here.
Anytime you get hit by one of the balls that you see here, you will actually get shocked for a fair bit of damage and put back towards the starting area. So all eyes on the players as they very slowly. Hey!
There we go.
We have our first successful electric gauntlet at Blizzcon. They move through, get some CCs up on the infested mob, want to get their percent here before working to spawn the third boss of the dungeon.
Yeah, but great job here by PogChamp getting through the lightning gauntlet. Let's make sure we keep an eye on Method NA as they have to do the same soon after.
We do see Bloodlust coming up in 10 seconds for Method PogChamp. Certainly the boss you want to have it for coming up. It is ruthless. Even in this fortified setting, even with the slip-ups you might have, if you let all of that electricity and energy go to the boss, the third boss coming up, it is quite a bit of damage on the group.
It's extremely unforgiving as well. It only takes, probably half of a pillar really to charge up the boss to full energy and have it put out a huge nuke of damage onto everybody. They do a barrier as well to be able to deal with it, but we'll likely start seeing, about 2 or 3 groups to be able to rotate through soaking here. A lot of times we've had just a tank, for example, will solo 1 pillar, and then you have 1 range, 1 melee grouped up together to be able to soak half of a pillar each.
So they deal with the infested mob now. They grip it up. Now, that mob was not in combat. If you sap something or just completely incap it without getting in combat, it will not get any pulsar stacks. It will not aggro once it falls out of the CC. Now, they did grip it upwards there, so I'm not sure if it's going to aggro on them just a bit later, but all of the mobs you see here in this room are required to spawn the third boss.
Really heavy damage going to be going on here. Eldrat doing an excellent job being able to prepare for it as Rapture is going up. They need to watch for that explosive out way in the back. Jumping out of the group, getting
Custom mode.
deploying it as rapidly as they can. We are seeing the barriers going down, help mitigate a lot of the damage. So we have a ton of areas to be able to move around in. As you see, they even have to step out of the barrier sometimes to avoid some of the damage coming out.
Ich ziehe wieder einmal Cold Rise.
Great job. You'll have that extra little control here to be taking down the mobs very quickly.
But you are, Jack. Those dervishes do actually blink to their highest aggro target. In this case, of course, should be the tank with that little kind of AoE lightning on the ground. Residual nature damage on the group as well. Not really very heavy tank damage.
Will mich immer umbringen.
Infested for last. If I'm not mistaken, they're going to pull the infested from up the stairs exactly. The one that they gripped earlier.
kann ich nur dafür?
2 sets the tank. He has aggro on it. They want to combine them together again. Infested mobs do not kill each other, so it's often very efficient to pull as many as you can together, kill them at about an even pace to make sure that you can kill all the goonies after that.
Yeah, and at this point,
Kann so
unless there's
wirken,
no
wenn man
movement of dying, then you'll be able to actually spawn a boss, the third boss.
die erste
So the most efficient that they can be. A lot of times you don't have as wide a choice in this dungeon, for example, compared to like a Call of the Star, where we're seeing a wide variety of pulls that we're going out there. So doing a great job of following that. Very interesting to be able to see, not only how they're dealing with Galvas, but also just as they have to deal with the eyeballs at the end, making sure they're getting them slotted up into the head of the snake and moving on to the final boss here.
A Method and A just clawing back as quickly as they can, doing all the pressure right before the gauntlet. Hopefully Marv does use that portal on the side, giving them a small advantage, but the third boss has been engaged by Method PogChamp here. Name of the game here is you want to make sure that you're intercepting the electric beam from the pillar going towards the boss every time they spawn. You need about a 3-man rotation, sometimes 4 depending on the spawn frequency a bit earlier into the fight, but any of the beams that hit the boss, as we alluded to earlier, will charge energy up, and if he reaches 100 energy, will AoE the room.
Yeah, at this point, everyone's staying very tightly packed in together and controlling different quadrants. You're seeing Elzrat's now popping in to be able to deal with one of the spires that has just spawned, and then you might start seeing him just hand it off a little bit if the stacks start getting a little bit too high. But at this point, at a 13 level, they should be pretty comfortable to be able to deal with a full spire each.
Method and A past that electric gauntlet there, faster than Method PogChamp, could be indicative of the end of the dungeon. We'll see, but they save a few seconds there as they start to do the trying to spawn Galvaz as well. But PogChamp, just has such a substantial lead at this point. Very well performed on the boss here, 15%, getting ready to move to the second gauntlet after this.
Yeah, at this point, they're doing a great job being able to have that kind of control. None of the energy getting into Galvas here. And every single time one spawns, they have positions. They're marking out who is going to be next up in the rotation, who's going to be taking up those beams. Great job here by PogChamp. Only 1 death on the board as they're moving on to the last boss.
PogChamp moving forward here, dodging the beams. Now, this one is a bit tougher, so we'll have to keep an eye on, making sure nobody gets hit. Dr. J cheekily blinks just past the last of it. Now they have to deal with the bridge here. You do get slowed, and you do constantly have lightning strikes going on here. You want to aggro the kind of mini boss mob at the end of this.
Oh Mann, den scheiß Dingern auch noch ausweichen, ey.
Spawning. Once you grab the channel here, this is again a different type of gauntlet. Name of the game here is there is an orb or eye on each side of the room which you have to collect.
Weil du langsam wirst.
The mouth of the snake. Once you fit those eyes in the
Die ganzen kleinen Dinger sind alles nur Proben.
the path to the last boss. A lot of mobs here. The most dangerous thing that can happen here is that they grab by accident.
Ich bin sicher, die wirklich Verrückten, die tun sonst schon was machen.
Natürlich jeder mal Sache mit so einem Gerät da so ein 3D-Programm da locken.
Just again being able to throw the orbit to himself, just keep on throwing it ahead of the group. That way they'll be able to quickly and efficiently be able to get it ahead of the group and getting it slotted in very quickly. So at this point, just kiting everything out. They're gonna be able to take advantage of the slows coming out from the mage. They just have to watch out for a couple of little explosives that are be spawning from the north areas.
Yep. So yeah, Tank's job here is to just get everything and get it the heck away as far as you can, so the rest of the team can just grab the orbs and get them to the face as quickly as possible. Now, the infested in there's actually two. It's going to be quite difficult to deal with. If they let any of those Kunis infest this mass amount of mobs here, it's just going to turn into just such a difficult situation. Oftentimes, you actually see teams just opt to wipe here, use their battle res, and then go from there because it's such a time dump needing to deal with this.
It does take up quite a bit of time, but also if you have it available to you, we've seen the shadow modes in the past be so helpful to be able to quickly and efficiently start getting away from any of these. You are seeing Sebs who is going down, who apparently may not have had like the shadow mode may have failed, or we were seeing some of those explosives going off, so we made a shadow mode and then he had to, of course, just put out a res on it.
Fortunately, no one else was in combat with any of those mobs on purpose to make sure that they can res if anything went wrong, or if you purposely wiped here. They still passed everything else. Now, these 4 hexers here do give percent, but I don't think it's going to get enough percent to finish off the dungeon. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember the exact percent. It'll be very close to it.
It will be very close. Hey, look at the Heart of Azeroth getting up to level 27. I'd love to see it. They're also able to get getting all these hexers in together. You're right, they do need to start catching up a little bit onto the rest of the trash percentage, but they do have a tremendous with the buff that the boss gives them at the end. If they start pulling trash that they had just skipped, they'll be able to carry that buff over into clear and dust.
And of course, with the extra strength that they just got from that level 27 negating mid-dungeon, the 4 hexers are pulled together. Lava Bursts do a ton of damage sporadically on the group. You want to interrupt as many as possible. They don't have the advantages, of course, of a prompt paladin, anything with frequent interrupts. So they just got to grab what they can. We do see some flame shots go out on the group. No problem for Elstrat to deal with. Method and A, not forgotten yet. They are finally downing the 3rd boss. We'll see how quickly they're able to move through the back-to-back gauntlet coming up. PogChamp now at 90%. They're going to make up the remainder of their trash with the buff that they get from the last boss. In the very last phase of this boss, you do get a massive buff. I believe it's 50% haste, 90% reduced damage taken, etc. So they're going to want to pull that last pack into the boss room to finish it off.
Right you are. And as they're going on to this and making sure they're dropping those fish feasts to start topping off all of Elzrat's mana. Despite his disc is annoying, but it's not impossible to do. A lot of times it's just going to be focusing on any kind of opportunity you're able to offer, as well as really just controlling, and probably most importantly, controlling a lot of the frogs that will be falling down the greatest oats when it comes down. Leaving, whenever it impacts the player, leaving that disease down onto it is just so annoying to deal with, especially if it's covering everybody. And when you're in that intermission phase as this priest, you're not able to have any other kind of targets to be able to hit. So it'd be very annoying and very difficult to deal with, and having everybody slowly kind of creeping down in health.
And if I'm not mistaken, that disease actually does add a healing reduction to you as well, making it harder to kind of keep everyone healthy in this splash AoE damage environment. The hexers well dealt with here by Method PogChamp. We discussed earlier, right before the dungeon, the explosive on this boss. Those hexers are immobile. They spawn kind of in the quadrants around the room, so everybody has to keep a very good eye on any explosives that can spawn at any time. Now, there was once upon a time when it was quite mean that these frogs would as well spawn explosives, but since then that has been fixed.
But at this point, you're seeing everybody busting out the first aid here to be able to start healing themselves, helping out their districts. I'd love to see this. I'd love to be able to see that. But they're also doing a great job actually surrounding Elzrat here whenever those random toads came down. They're soaking up all of it, and they're able to take advantage of his disease spell. You're even seeing Dr. J using one of his ice blocks to make sure he's clearing off the defense easily.
So the Guardians that spawn here are probably the most dangerous mob in the general phases. They do the stacking damage taken debuff on the tank, 20% per stack. So you want to make sure you kill those as quickly as possible, especially for something like a DK, not the most mobile tank in the world. So you want to make sure you get rid of all of those stacks as quickly as possible before the tank essentially does, or potentially can get one shot. Bit of a death coming over here from Method NA with mid as they res on the other side. I think it was to deal with the gauntlet. Indeed it was. It was a purposeful death, similar as we saw with PogChamp, wanting to kind of get all the mobs out of the way, out of combat, and now they as well are heading for the last boss.
A lot of damage going out here onto the side of PogChamp. They were not able to get the dispel onto Muscle Bra, and an explosive went off here. What happened was Elzra was actually dispelling one of the disease demons. He's going down here. PogChamp here, only left alive. They have 2 battle rests left available to it, but it looks like it's just going to be a full wipe.
And that's what we were
was denn da los?
These explosives are just so dangerous with the amount of
Alter, kompletter Tod, ey.
Was? Ja? Wo? Wie?
Von PogChamp. Kompletter Gruppentod.
On this boss, 84% trash on the actually they're still dealing with the Hexers, getting ready to start on
Ja, da haben wir auch schon.
Ja, aber auch ganz schön viel.
This is a very long boss fight, and they need to get started right away again.
They really do, and it also shows you
Machen die Bienen da, ey.
experience as well. Going into this where, you know, you were seeing Eldrad dispelling one of the diseases going out. They do got a battle res going out for Marv on the side of Method NA. Start topping it off. We've seen those Hexer pulls that can be quite annoying when you're getting everything together. But at this point, this is Method NA right now is going to be in the driver's seat. But Eldrad at that point had dispelled one of the diseases coming up from one of the frogs.
Der 11. Tod von NA? Meine Güte, ne, was macht ihr da?
Which again, polymorphed Muscle Bra. Muscle Bra was caught in one of the lightning strikes and wasn't able to move because he was still polyed. And Eldrad didn't want to be able to use his Mass Dispel here because it costs so much mana to it. So a little bit of an error there, just like slowly led to the collapse of the rest of the group. And when we see Muscle Bra go down, you start missing out on being able to kill him.
I mean, at this point, it's Method's game to lose and win at this point. So we'll have to see which one comes out on top. They're getting ready to pull the boss here. We see already some of the explosives have spawned in the quadrants. One of them does go off already. One straight, really good coverage. The dot comes up as Dark was already quite low. Manages to heal, but another explosive goes off for Method and Nate, barely holding on. It's going to start chewing a lot of the defensives that JV might want to be saving for the boss healing during the intermission.
And you see the early rune train going out for the group here, right at the very beginning of it. And that's where you'll be able to have those, fair markers as to where everybody's responsibilities are going to be. It's going to be very efficient if you're going to be able to start dotting up everything and slowly taking everything down. But when you have to deal with the explosives on top of it from any of those 4 locations, it can be immensely difficult.
And I believe there's a bit of an advantage here for the rest of Druid over the Dispriest Jack. We've talked oftentimes on this boss, just being able to kind of just power heal through those transition phases. Method PogChamp, of course, not out yet. They have once again pulled the boss, and I mean, we're neck and neck between the two teams. There's a 4-death difference between them, 20 seconds on the clock in favor of PogChamp in this case, but this is a long boss fight, and they still need to pull some of the extra trash and the last phase.
Yeah, I think at this point, like you said, the 4-death differential, I think, just about equal to each other in terms of where they need to be. At this point, though, like you said, it's very easy, especially whenever you're able to put many different healing effects out onto the Avatar Accessories, because of course the whole point of this fight is after you kill those Hexers, you need to quickly top off the Avatar. Every single healing effect is going to be adding additional healing whenever you click the orb that is dropped by the Heart Guardian. So clicking that orb and all the different healing effects that Wrested Druid is able to bring versus pretty much a Shadowman spam, maybe Defensive Penance going out there. But really the only things, so I think you will start seeing a lot of the extra power healing going out on the side in the advantage of Method NA.
Really good coverage here for Method NA as you with a lot of these spawning the different quadrants. Important to note, of course, that the casters that spawn during the fight spawn near the entrance of the room, so you want to make sure you grab them right away on top of whatever else your DPS is so that they don't spawn random explosives at the beginning of the room. We are now in that second phase as we see JP just pouring regrowth into the avatars, the Valis in the middle. We do have breakpoints at 40 and 70%. So once again, the healing is locked on the boss in the middle, and they have to deal with one more round of Hexers and Guardians.
Yeah, and after this round of Hexers and Guardians, they will be able to heal it up to that 100% level and start getting that buff that we've been talking about, which is going to be very heavily needed here as you're going to start seeing, once PogChamp starts going into that next intermission phase, then you'll be able to heal even more. That's really where it starts draining away a lot of your mana, and you have to be standing just about Shadowmen to be able to deal with a lot of it. You're not having any kind of off healers on either side, really, to be able to help you with assist. The things like having the disease dispels can also take up a lot of extra, or can also save you a lot of extra mana, but of course they don't have.
Now they got to be careful here. Rev has 5 stacks already from the Guardian running around. He can't exactly get away too easily. It's 100% increased damage taken for him, as you see him kind of trying to get away with it. 6 stacks now, and Marv is chunking in damage as well. Rev is actually in pretty prime position to just take huge hits of damage. You see him just trying to get away from the Guardian as quickly as possible. They do finally down it though.
The Toads are going after JV here. They're just trying to be able to get all of them down. You are seeing all of them getting soaked up by Dark with the Cloak of Shadows there. That was a huge pile that he had to dodge. And on their side, they don't have any sort of disease dispel.
So once again, we are now in the last phase. They do have to do one more round of clear with the massive buff that they get. A lot of haste, a lot of damage decrease taken. You see they turn back right away to grab the rest of the trash that they need. They're only at 91% right now. They want to utilize the buff that they get in this last phase. As soon as they kill those 4 Hexers and heal the Avatar to 100%, they have to kill the remaining 9% of trash. That's already part of the mess that you're seeing on your screen. A lot of explosives all over the place. PogChamp not far behind now, healing through their second transition and getting ready for the 70% phase.
Yeah, at this point, all that NA needs to do is play cleanly, deal with these explosives, and be able to take everything down here, and the game is going to be theirs after what it was a horrible, horrible start.
There's just so many explosives out on the board right now. Everybody has to pay attention to hitting them, but not a lot of damage that they're taking from them. They do have their huge damage reduction from the boss buff. As you see,
they don't even care.
They don't even care, so they're just making sure that everything's kept in check and they're DPSing the mobs as quickly as possible. The explosives doing 90% reduced damage to the group, which is why you're seeing them just letting them go off as often as they can. PogChamp's just slowly trying to catch up right now. Remember, they have an extra 20 seconds to try and clean up the rest of this fight. Method NA now at 96% for the trash, working desperately to clean the rest of it and stop their timer.
At this point, 96% left onto the trash, 2 mobs left remaining, these little Heart Guardians, and that's going to be it. Method NA. After all this incredible rocky start.
Very rocky start. 20 seconds, I just don't think it's
Oh,
going to
und
be
er
enough
hat den
for
Boss
Method
hier
PogChamp to
besiegt,
catch up. They still have
weil
to
sie noch nicht
kill
aus dem
the
Rennen
buff
kommen.
phase, which hasn't happened yet.
And they got a whole
Ein
paar Sekunden.
It's not going to be able to happen for them. Method NA.
And you just, it just goes to show you.
NA hat gewonnen.
Rocky start, consistency, persistence, and they won the first match.
What a ride!
Ja.
Taking your team to
But they didn't. I put in a period on. Alright, well.
We'll spawn the boss.
Now, in the All-Stars event, if PogChamp loses this, we are heading for a North America versus Asia Pacific finale.
Jack, here we are at Freehold Timbers as we get ready to pull a lot of that. Here's the thing, this dungeon has a lot of just different routes we see from the teams right away with the stealth too, but we are once again in a bolstering environment. Both teams stealthing through. We see the double rogue come out of Method NA, wanting to get that subtlety, focused single target damage on the higher health mobs with this bolstering environment.
Yeah, they'd love to be able to see these kind of coming out more often here. Method NA, and also seeing, like you mentioned, as Nigura said before, Shella is going, of course, to his Warlock, and he's very good to be able to get those extra little skills coming out here. It is no surprise, of course, to see Marv on the wall. So they'll both be able to have that next advantage going into this.
Now, in order to spawn this first boss, so they can stop him from having the carrot guano go all over the floor, you do need to kill one of the first 2 Enforcer packs. Once they do that, it will spawn the boss. The boss can go out of bounds. You want to keep him kind of central in this area. Some teams also opt to do a bit more trash after this first mandatory pull to wait for the 2-minute CDs to come back up so that they're able to just burst everything with Bloodlust.
Yeah, at this point, it's really going to be everybody tightly stacking up together, being in pretty close together, so that the charge is not going to be going out too far. Always very important to make sure they're staying in range, so that Muscle Bra, for example, is not going to have to be running around too far. PogChamp start up the fight a little bit sooner than Method NA. You're getting a little bit of advantage at the start of the instance.
The boss 2 phases here will be 75-70%, where the parrot will kind of rise up and start guanoing once again on the rest of the group, the closest proximity target as they fly around, periodically coming down and sweeping through the middle of the floor, knocking back any player. The boss himself, quite dangerous, especially in a tyrannical setting, Jack, with that kind of frontal that he does on a targeted member. It could also be on the tank, and there's a huge amount of fire range.
And I'd love to be able to see the positioning here out of Elgrad, actually standing very far away from Dr. J and Shada, baiting out any of the refuse from Squawks here, making sure that they're able to get all of those taken care of, while Dr. J and Shada are
just able to sit there and turret as much as they need to and stay very far out of range.
So similar to what we saw with Excel's Angels, we see Method NA grab a ton of trash on top of the boss. Skittish acting system, they want to make sure they feed as much single target damage as they can for those two rogues. They have to be really careful. If any of that trash accidentally dies, it will bolster everything around it, including the boss for 20% health and damage. So they want to focus the damage really well, get the trash just low enough so that they can kill it after the boss dies. Really big pull here.
Yeah, great pull, and like you said, the bigger risk that they're going to have to be taking here, making sure that only the rogues are going to be dealing any other kind of damage to them, relying on Tricks of the Trade to be able to keep on funneling extra threat into Rev. Always be very important because those accidental deaths, especially in bosses with Tyrannical, with that much HP, just eats up so much extra time and could just hurt the advantage that they're already working on right now.
And Method, the two Method teams like Method Brothers here, doing a similar pull on PogChamp. They will trash a bit later once the boss is already low enough. They just don't have as much sustained single target focus, not having that second subtlety rogue, but they do get some trash off as well, as Sky Captain Craig is about to fall over. 5% left for Method NA, cleaning up the rest of the trash. All is quite low. Everything was controlled excellent, and they're getting ready to move forward.
Great play here by Method NA as PogChamp still trying to be able to deal with the rest of this trash here. Method NA starting late but taking out of their early advantage now.
And here we are with one of the skips, as we alluded to earlier, skipping right across that bridge. Both teams dodging that Enforcer, which is just a kind of mini boss style mob, not CCable, just a pain in the butt to deal with. Now we are in a skittish environment. It's easy to telegraph to you folks here, but that does mean that the tank has to produce extra threat, aka be extra aggressive, to maintain aggro on all the mobs. So you have to make sure to give them a second just to grab everything together in AoE, get as much damage as possible before everyone opens up on damage.
Or bring two rogues. Very good to see here that as they're pulling a lot of the mobs, they're actually avoiding the event for now. They're going to make sure they're actually dealing with the Trapper and, of course, the little vermin that he actually has alongside of him. Killing all the little vermin before he brings the Trapper back in with the rest of the group is very easy to get quick bolsters out onto that. So very important to make sure that they're just dealing with any of the smaller mobs first, getting them out, getting them out of the way, and then moving on from there to get the rest of these mobs down.
Yeah, there's a lot of packs here, a lot of optional routes. I'm sure they've mapped them out to deal with as little infested as possible. Now, the trappers that do come out from that Quinrat do a lot of damage, a lot of dot damage. If you can get rooted in place, now somebody could, well, there's no paladin available here, but you can usually freedom root them, sustain the dot, and it will only root you at the end of whatever mobility freeing a talent or ability you use. Nothing too available for them here. JD can run through them as you see him now, and he shapeshifts in and out, which breaks the root for him.
It's very easy to make sure you're taking care of that for everybody else here. Also, important to know that they started the event early. The event that we're going to be having is actually disabling the Valkyria captain, so they will not have to deal with any of the blasts coming out. They will not have to be following around the captain at all. So they will be able to just start drinking with some of the village rats and stopping that boss from going into the fight.
Water is, of course, what they're drinking here on today's stream. Method PogChamp dealing with another small skip here, just wanting to get everything in position as quickly as possible. There are a couple casters lingering on the side. We'll have at least one grip coming out of Seth for that, and he does an asphyxiate on the side there on the skull target. He gets a few sheets off, making sure that it doesn't get too many water bolts off. And I don't believe that's an infested mob, just trying to peek here. One of the bigger mobs comes in, making sure to focus. That guy's about double the amount of health of the smaller trash mobs that you see here, meaning that it will need to focus that single target. He already came in late, and everything else is at half HP.
And they really can start wasting a lot of time if they're not careful. You did see the two death go out on the side of mid there. Very important that they're always going to be watching out for that. And also, whenever you have these crushers, not only do they have so much HP, but also just the area denial that they'll often have when you're in, very melee heavy, for example, Method NA. They start pulling multiple of these together. It can be very difficult to be able to kind of get the right uptime that you want, and making sure you're not killing any of those mobs early, especially when you need to be putting a ton of damage into them with a Blizzard. There goes more of all the extra slows that are being put out.
Yeah, Dr. J here, absolutely crucial with the Frost Mage too, making sure that you kite those heavily bolstered mobs away from the tank and build some resources if needed to get back in for a death stroke or two. It doesn't look like they're dangerous on the screen right now, but those mobs have a ton of bolster stacks. 20% extra damage per stack, could easily one-shot Sebs. So you see him dip in there for just a second, gets chunked to 1/3 HP just within one melee.
Yeah, it's very important that they're always watching out for those as they're starting to get themselves ready for the next pull. They'll probably just continue clearing trash until they actually have Bloodlust left available to them, and then they'll be able to start using that on either the Castle Captain, or if they have the time and want to go into the back early, they might be able to do that early on as well.
Pretty big pull coming out here with Method PogChamp on the right, and not to be left behind, Method and A doing the same. They've already kind of gone on to the Ring of Booty, getting ready to plunder that. Dealing with all of the crushers pressures as much as they can on the side. Remember, these have double health and everything else, but they have the advantage of that double subtlety rogue dealing, just dishing so much single target damage into those crushers.
Yeah, but very important as they are activating the first part of the Ring of Booty, having to chase it down, lightning the big, making sure that they're able to get, you know, 5 grabs that are required onto it, because everybody else is going to be working on it. They have to watch out for the stun of the rock thrower. JV dropping really low here, 9% left, getting himself topped off. But like I said, that's the danger, having that 2-second stun going out, going to try and grab that greasy pig. It'll be so dangerous when you do these kind of pulls.
In fact, we were really interested to see where the world first wave to this pig mechanic was going to be. And JV actually does go down there as they try to grab the pig. You got to move out of those boulders, especially with the bolstering stacks. Fortunately, JV can release and stealth back quickly to the rest of the team as they finish off the trash.
But you know where he's at? He's actually at Skytrap Crag too, so they're getting the summoning stone down because he has to travel all the way across the instance otherwise.
Oh, shiver me timbers, Jack. They're getting ready now to pull Ludwig von Tortolan, which is kind of a mini boss style mob. It's not actually one of the bosses, but is a huge time up. He just has a ton of health. Now they finally get him over, they summon him, and they're ready to pull in just a moment. Method PogChamp dealing with a ton of the trash on the side, getting ready to move over to the pirates as well. So working on some different bosses, very open concept dungeon in terms of which boss order you do. In fact, you can even do the last boss, second or third if you want.
Yeah, great job here pulling the pressure in as well. They will have 2 very heavy targets in both the Crusher and a Ludwig to be able to start taking down. And of course, any of these neutral, any of these yellowy mobs that we're seeing running into the group will not have extra stacks to either Ludwig or the Crusher here. So it's very easy fodder here for both the rogues on the side of Method NA.
Method PogChamp. Now, it is important to note you do see the health bar of all 3 captains here for PogChamp on the right side. Only 2 of them are actually enemies and active right now. The other one is friendly. There's a rotation of rate. Of course, it is consistent for both teams right now to make sure everything is proper for integrity and fairness between the 2 teams. So we'll see Method NA move over to that just a bit later. Crusher going down now for Method NA as they finish off Von Tortolan as well. PogChamp dealing with the second boss.
Yeah, right here you're seeing PogChamp doing a great job watching out for any of the
Hier ist der
as you will see that there is the bartender out onto the side. We'll start throwing things in. He's going to shell it. Everybody's stacking it up to be able to receive it. 3 different these increases that you're going to be able to get. One of them is a very nasty caustic dot that you can actually stand the captains in so that they can start taking that damage. Another one will give you haste, and another will give you crit. So very important to make sure you're watching either through a weak aura or just focusing and watching the cast coming out from the bartender here and to know which brew is going to be coming in to be able to receive that extra damage.
Yeah, it is actually a huge buff and a huge amount of damage on the bosses, so the better you play off with that, the better off you'll be getting just a ton of time gain on this boss. PogChamp doing really well to do that. Sometimes you just have inevitable denial on the area that you want to soak or have the bosses soaking just because of some of the barrel smash or of course the saber going out from the bosses. But you see mid get really low there, really big pull coming in from Method NA as well, similar to the first boss, wants to do those two subtle throws.
Yeah, really they're going also a lot of red enemy mobs. Maybe I think it has a really heavy responsibility to start doing this. And be able to take them
both teams just similar gameplay here, getting as much trash as they can on top of the boss, but making sure to kill the boss first. Method and having the advantage in that, like we saw with Excel's Angels earlier, because they're just able to funnel so much more single target, so they're able to pull that trash earlier for those rogues. While PogChamp actually just needs to pull towards the end of the boss's health cycle.
Yeah, at that point, you're also seeing promos coming out very soon before PogChamp be less available to them. But like right now, Method NA for a boss that usually is less on, especially in its radical setting, didn't even need it. They're down to 13% out on Throwback here, and just very strong showing right now.
And I mean, that's a ton of percentage gain in just a moment as Throwback goes down as well. They're going to get all that trash cleaned up too. PogChamp at 69%, moving over to the Ring of Booty themselves. It does go down at the end, so that's going to be an extra 5 seconds on the clock. There's still a lot of trash left, so they opt to use that battle res. And I mean, they're not going to have that available for pretty much the rest of the dungeon. Looks like they're holding off on actually accepting the res, though. It seems that they're confident that they can clean it up, and it's not worth the time gain.
I don't think it's worth the risk right now. Like you said, if it's not going to be able to get another battle res available to them for the rest of this dungeon, based off the time that they're going after right now. And while it looks like, you know, they're both one boss down, there was so much RP, there's so much time to actually get to Throwback already. So I think Method NA, you know, has quite a distinct advantage, not only in trash, but in terms of the bosses that they're dealing with. And they're getting bloodlust back to deal with Council Captains.
Yeah, Council Captains is a particularly nasty boss in this environment. Just a lot of damage on the tank, and of course the sporadic damage on the group, especially if you're not to get out of the barrels or anything of that sort. A lot of pressure that will go on the healer, but they're ready now to pull that second boss, and PogChamp is moving towards the third boss that we just saw Meth and deal with. But this sloppiness is starting to add up, Jack. It's already 3 deaths on the board for Meth and that's an extra 15 seconds. And we say time and time again, we said it at the Globals as well, those add up, and we've seen how close some of these matches have been.
They really have been, but in order to make up for lost time here, you're seeing quite a big pull of Trash going into the boss here. Again, more risky pulls here to be able to, during bolstering setting, and they still have some of the neutral mobs, some of the yellow mobs, even if they need to be able to deal with it. So they really have to watch a lot of their cleave damage here as they're going up against Captain Jolly and Captain Riley.
Those yellow mob health bars, of course, not to be mistaken, 4 rows. There are already several of those on the Method NA side. Dealing well with all the mechanics so far, making sure they get some of those sorely soaks from the Bruise coming in. You see one flying midair right now. PogChamp, similarly large pull, pulling a lot of trash onto the pulling the kind of 3 bosses who throw that.
Right here, you're seeing 41% left on the Captain Jolly here. Doing a great job of making sure they focus him down first as you offer more of the aerial denial, keeping them out of any of the blue buffs that the bartender would be throwing here. The Whirlpool Blades is extremely difficult to be able to actually get back into the boss because the hitbox of Captain Jolly is so small, as I'm sure you can tell me about.
Why, yes, it is a very frustrating mechanic, but nonetheless, if you backpedal it just close enough, he does absorb it, and the players can more freely enjoy the rest of the space and soak some of those infection. PogChamp getting ready now to work on Throwback. Seems that they're getting ready to pull some trash on top of him. No surprise here, as we've seen both teams do. And Captain Raoul now plummeting quickly in HP, down to 60% as they start to clean up the rest of the trash too.
Right here, they're doing a great job. And also important to know that because they're pulling more trash into the fight and they are still remaining in combat, as they're clearing up the rest of these mobs, the Aurora will still stay active until the combat actually ends up dropping. So her extra damage being contributed to the group, also having all these smaller mobs being extra fodder to be able to feed the sub-rogues is very strong.
Fodder indeed, yeah. Now, NA is slightly behind on trash percentage here. They're going to get a bit of gain. PogChamp is already at 90%. They still have something to clean up, and they, of course, have a painful motivation.
NA hat fast den dritten fertig. PogChamp hat noch nicht mal angefangen.
I'm not mistaken, neither team's actually used the here right now. At least Method NA hasn't. Seems like they're struggling that last boss. We do have that increased damage taking place at the end. Mid getting quite low here. Ate one of the wrong crews, if I'm not mistaken, and he seems to be taking a heavy nature down. Dawson.
That's another thing that usually should try to take a group, but always
NA wird wohl aufholen mit ihren Toten. No.
Small yellows here before they have to move on to Harlan Sweet. But they're also really well positioned to have a very strong painful motivation goal coming up.
Yeah, and keep in mind,
Schwingen. Zwingt aber eine große Waffe
you
hier.
can't really kind of just pull the whole instance with it anymore and let the mobs die off. It will only select up to 3, if I'm not mistaken, mobs that it does clip. And in an ulcering environment, you certainly don't want the wrong mobs getting off too quickly. So perhaps it's something they're actually opting to skip entirely, as we see PogChamp is now at 98% trash. Looks like they're probably just gonna have a clean skip, back-to-back bosses, try back to go down. They're going to go up on the bridge. They're going to use the skip with Shela's portal, of course, and then they're going to start working on Harlan.
Wieso sind die anderen schon beim 4. Boss weg?
Getting close to any of the chum buckets that are dropping down. You are seeing Bloodlust coming up on the side of PogChamp here to start helping burn down the last Throwback, being able to get it out of the way. Because a lot of times, especially when they're so caster heavy in this group, it's very difficult to be able to keep on managing and keep on kiting out all of the sharks that are coming out here. It can be very, very annoying to deal with here. So everybody's doing a great job starting out for the Sharknado that's coming out. And also making sure they're getting rid of any of those sharks that are out in the way. Shella has to run for his life after
PogChamp hat auch fast bald ihren dritten Boss erlegt.
It's nature damage coming out from the shark because sharks are from nature.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, it is a ton of damage coming out of those sharks indeed. You can base tank them a bit, even as a tank, but eventually you're going to have to move unless you have a community pop, like as well wording from a paladin. Of course, not available here. We're using 2 blood DKs. You have to move over quickly and make sure they kite the sharks through those chum buckets to slow them by 50%.
Natürlich, PogChamp hat schon die gesamte Linie ausgeräumt.
They do aggro Harlan Sweet, the final boss of the dungeon, notoriously short, just like my friend Robert here, and is quite dangerous in the last few phases of the fight.
Very dangerous at the end of the fight, but also takes a massive amount of increased damage here, so they'll be able to save their bloodlust left for that, as well as be able to take down the boss from there. So very important to note that you have, of course, the cannon fire going out from the boss, which will originally just be targeting one player at a time, and then it will start targeting everybody else a little bit later. They're sitting there waiting for the first 3 shots, and then they're starting to move out to maximize the space available.
Yeah, this kind of is a 3-phase fight, I would say, Jack. Similar mechanics throughout all the phases, but at 70%, all of his mechanics will target everyone in the group, and then at 30%,
Das sieht für NA gut aus.
the boss will take 100% increased damage but gain 100% haste, dealing more tank damage. So you're seeing the group stick together here. He's hitting that
Das sind die anderen auch bei der letzten.
together around the area, making sure that the cannonballs are not taking up too much of the space because a lot of that fire on ground takes a while.
Ja, NA sollte mal schnell machen. Die müssen noch ein paar Mobbles killen eventuell.
So doing a great job, 65% left onto it. PogChamp also is
halt mir dahinter.
Bloodlust is on the side of Method NA, but they do need 5% more trash, and they do have a 15-second deficit.
Yeah, exactly. I do believe they're going to kind of pull some of that trash on top of the boss at the very end with Bloodlust, trying to get everything down all in one nice little package. Everybody's now going to be targeted by the bombs coming in for Method NA, the cannonballs coming in. PogChamp at 75% on the boss. No Bloodlust accessible to them. They will be killing everything slower, but do not have to deal with any of the danger of the trash, and have a 15-second buff, 50-second advantage rather. Harlan, of course, dropping his cannonballs. Harlan shuffle coming out of Method NA right now. They pull all the trash on, and this is a big pull here.
This is a really big and very aggressive pull here. They do have to be a lot of these enforcers tend to toss the tank all over the place, but this is exactly the environment Rev loves to be in. Very important to make sure they watch their positioning, though. He's not going to be moving out of the boss room, for example.
Ja, das wird knapp.
But he is getting tossed right back into the cannon fire, moving as quickly as he can to get out of that. They're just getting close to taking the boss down and getting into that increased damage.
Das wird noch verdammt knapp.
They're just so dangerous. They toss the tank to one of the far targets, so the group has to make sure to stick together, but not too close because he does do splash damage when he lands, and there's already a ton of damage going out. Harlan now down to 15% for Method NA, taking 100% increased damage, 95% on the trash board. They do need to finish up some of the trash. Dark does good, quite low.
7, 6, 5%, 4%, 3, 2, 1. Viertes gelegt. Alter. Schnell die restlichen Mobbles weg. 3% noch. 100. Sehr schön. NA gewinnt. Sind schon über der Zeit schon längst.
It's not going to be enough, though. It just didn't get enough single target feed at the end, and that was a close one again.
Very close one, and Method NA taking this as well.
NA greater than EU at the Mythic Dungeon Invitational All-Stars. You guys can come home now. Come on back to NA.
Ja, dann kommen wir zum Finale.
Gekona,
Im Mythic Dungeons dann.